Thank you very much, John Hetherington, for the time today. I've been super excited to have you on the podcast, John. I know you and I have been connected for a long time. You're one of the big innovation thought leaders in Calgary. So it's an honor to have you here kind of speaking with us and our listeners today. How are you doing today, John? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What excites you about the ecosystem right now? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's thank you. Thanks, Mike, for that introduction. That's awesome. It's interesting we're meeting today because the second Friday of January is actually, I think they call it International Quitters Day, when most people
Yes, I saw that.
when most people give up on their resolutions. And
Yeah.
it tie quite well to our chat about innovation, actually, because one of the challenges with innovation is keeping it going, keeping the momentum there, so we can cover that on the same time. But yeah, awesome. Excited to be back in January, hitting the ground running, and looking forward to the year ahead.
Well, happy International Quitters Day. And to anyone in the innovation spectrum, I know it's appealing. You always want to take part in International Quitters Day, but a big thing is we got to persevere and keep moving on in these roles. As we're talking about roles, let's jump right into the content. John, we got connected because we were chatting at a coffee, and you really got me excited about these innovation roles that you're talking about and that your team's developing. And it was extremely resonating with a lot of the stuff I've been seeing in my thesis, in my practitioner world, throughout the podcast. Tell us a little bit about these innovation roles. Walk us through what those are.
Yeah, that's a great topic, because what I see over and over again is a lot of innovation struggles or even fails when they have certain roles that do really well. So visionaries, for example, they have a lot of excitement around this new innovation, this new problem we're solving, but they don't necessarily have the right team behind them to actually follow through on the delivery. Or it's the other way around. We have some awesome technicians, some developers, some technical wizards, but we don't have the vision and the marketing and the promotion to actually follow it through. So they're actually, what I've worked with my clients and over the years, I've refined it down to, there are 4 key roles that any innovation team would need. And these don't have to be people. As long as you've got these roles, it can be one person playing multiple roles, but there are definitely 4 roles. So just to go through them, it starts with a visionary, someone for the new ideas, to design the future, someone to have that big picture, that inspiration, that engagement. The second one is the navigators, who lead the team, remove the roadblocks. And they're typically the scrum master or the project manager, but someone who actually leads the team forward on behalf of the visionary. The third one is collaborators or connectors. And these roles are often missed because these are people who are reaching out to the other people, other teams, other networks in the organization or separately, to connect the dots, to start to piece ideas and solutions together, to get the right people on the team and do that networking in the classic sense. And then finally, the completer finishers. These are the technicians, the people who actually deliver, the developers, the coders. They actually follow through on delivering the work. And those are the 4 roles you need: the visionary, the navigator, the collaborator, and the completer finishers.
It's so interesting, John, because just this week I was chatting at MRU for entrepreneurship and innovative thinking, and we're talking about the roles of the idea person and the executor. Like every job needs a Wozniak, right? You need these 2 people or these 2 types of attributes. And I think in your innovation roles, you had those. You had the visionary, and then you also had the completer. But what you've added within there, which I really like, is the collaborator and the navigator, if I got those terms right. And as soon as you said those resonated with me. I try to involve more people in this. I try to get everybody to come to the table and move in. And so it's 2 new roles that I haven't seen before. Part of the debate we got in throughout entrepreneurship was, who's the true entrepreneur? Who owns the idea? Who should get credit for that? So out of your four roles, would you pin it down to one as most crucial, or would you say you need kind of all 4 for this to work?
Yeah, you definitely need all 4. And the interesting thing is that as innovation ideas come to life, as you start building them out, the importance of the roles may change depending on the actual delivery. So, for example, right up front, you always need that visionary. You need that person with the new ideas. They're designing the future. They're engaging you. They're bringing you along for the journey. So when they come up with their first idea to implement a new predictive maintenance system or this new AI tool to save time, they're painting that picture. They're very flamboyant. They're typically storytellers. So that's most important right up front, because you have to get buy-in for people to come along for the journey. But then as you go through the innovation delivery, of course, ultimately you get to the completer finishers, who are actually delivering on the promises, delivering on the vision and the goals and that future state. So generally speaking, you're going to need visionaries up front and then completer finishers to follow through. But it does vary, because as we hit roadblocks, as we get challenges, so when we get funding cuts or there's a change in industry regulation, the team needs to reset. And that does need all 4 roles to understand that change and then figure out how we change that innovation to make it still work.
Very cool. Reminds me a little bit of, well, as the more unofficial team that you need for any startup, the hacker, the hipster, and the hacker, the hipster, and the hustler, right? In this case, I think if I were to line it up, the hacker would be the executor, the hipster's kind of the vision and knows what's going on and wants this, and then the hustler would be that PM, maybe navigator role, or the collaborator, depending, bringing everybody together. But I do think that as you laid out these 4 roles for corporates, like putting on my practitioner hat, they're resonating. I'm like, these is actually something you could define within a team. You could work towards it. You could have one person wearing multiple hats or have multiple people wearing the same hat if you wanted to build out your team depending on team size. So walk us through, a lot of our listeners are within large organizations, they're within organizations, they're innovation teams, entrepreneurs, might be a smaller business as well. How do these actually work within organizations? How do you implement a model like this?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Every organization is slightly different. So it's the bigger organizations typically have the established processes, the project management gates, the staging, and lots of people to be brought on board. There's a lot of consensus decision making, which is,
these may already exist in the org.
Yeah, exactly. And it is what it is, but I'm working through it. So what I found is the typical translation of the roles goes like this. So visionaries are typically the sponsor role of a project.
Okay.
That needs at least manager, ideally director or VP.
Okay.
So
higher the better.
Someone with energy, someone who has power and influence in the organization. They may delegate some of the visionary work to the team, but that ultimately that sponsor is there for the visionary.
Okay.
For navigators, typically that's the project manager or the scrum master or someone who's leading the day-to-day to get things done and ultimately removing the roadblocks. The collaborators tend to be a mix of people, but definitely a working committee or some sort of management committee that's overseeing all the innovation in a company. Because again, they're connecting different problems, they're connecting different projects together. So if you're doing a predictive maintenance on pipeline ware in one area of the business, that working committee is going to help you connect with maybe some technicians in the finance department to capture the costs in the right way. And that, as that example. And then finally, the completer finishers, they're typically the developers, the analysts, the business analysts, the coders. These are the people hands on keyboards actually delivering the work.
So how do you feel, John, about dotted line accountability in this system? I know a lot of times companies might not be willing to fully step into it right now. Does this need to be direct line? This is the supervisor, this is the team, you're all working on this together? Or can this be done in a dotted line kind of, okay, we have our executors over here, we have some navigators, collaborators from this area. Can it be done that way as well?
Great question. An interesting challenge I see daily. So what I've seen work well is, yes, ideal world, you have a single line accountability. It's very clear and everyone's working that. But in reality, we all know that doesn't happen because when we're working on projects, suddenly it's like, oh, can you pick up this project? You get the call from your manager or boss, and it's a case of, well,
yeah, here's another thing to do.
Exactly. So I get it. In reality, the people on this innovation team are rarely 100% dedicated, rarely have the single line. So yes, the dotted line works, but you have to allocate time to do it. And that's where the real balance comes in. That's where you need this navigator role to say, okay, do we have enough time for the team to spend on this innovation? Because they're going to be pulled in different directions. They might get distracted on doing something else because they think, oh, this is a really neat problem to solve. I keep mentioning the predictive maintenance for pipeline ware. So as we started to get into that, we started to build out that predictive maintenance model. It started to get really interesting around the AI model that we were building, but then also the financial reporting. And the team was starting to go into a bit of a tangent on the cost savings, but it didn't. So it wasn't directly contributed to our primary goal, which was the maintenance ware, the predictive maintenance. So related. And so we had to steer the team back. Anyway, point is, you need to have that navigator role to keep people on track, which means making sure they have time allocated to the project. That might need help from the visionary or the working committee to say, we don't have enough time or we need more people allocated. So that's where the dotted line comes in to help work through that.
And thinking about time allocation, I mean, we're in an unprecedented time right now to get some time back, right? You and I could probably spend an hour talking about generative AI and how it can actually be used, or automation to reduce our tasks. So as an organization, yes, opening up time for people is one component of this, but now you're offering what they can fill that time with, right? It's not just more coffees or more work or something else coming in. It can actually be this thought leadership around, okay, where are we going next? Where's the next place that we want our organization to be?
Yes, it's a great point, because we're often called in to kick off the project, initiate the innovation project. And there's a goal: saving money, saving time. And my first question back is, okay, we're going to save 15% of time, this number of hours or work days. We're going to save this amount of cost. Okay, great. How are you going to reallocate that time? What are you going to do with that time? Because if you don't do anything, guarantee you'll have more meetings in your calendar. There's other projects will pop up.
Something will fill it up.
Exactly. And that's often the challenge. Is the whole point of innovation is to free up time for either more innovation or more strategic work. It's about driving the company forward. So if you just free up that time, then get more operations time, the day-to-day, which is needed. But if you do more of that, you're not then moving the company forward with more innovation.
Yes, excellent. Great ads there. So we've talked a little bit about these innovation roles, how you actually apply it within large organizations. A lot of this is resonating. A lot of this we've heard in different forums or different type of, names or under different monikers. So where do people struggle with this? Why isn't this being implemented everywhere? Why is there still a barrier to this? What's happening there culturally that might be causing some of these struggles within the innovation ecosystem?
Yeah, it's interesting. I see this a lot. A lot of innovation projects are short-lived, unfortunately. A lot of innovation teams ultimately get disbanded, and I get it. There's a cost constraint sometimes, changing the marketplace. But what we've brought it all the way down to is a couple of things, and I think that there's actually 4 specific things that to help teams continue innovation and maintain innovation. But it really stems from that value, the output, the result. Because typically when we're doing innovation, we don't see the tangible results of innovation for months, sometimes even years after the innovation's delivered. Ideally, it's as soon as possible. But often in large organizations, so for example, we were doing some cybersecurity predictive risk on the risks of cybersecurity attacks. The benefit of that isn't seen immediately because you've prevented the attack in the first place. So how do you see the ongoing value of that? And that's
if you do a really good job, you never see it.
Yeah, exactly that. And so a lot of innovation then gets scaled back because, hey, you're not delivering any tangible value. So what we've developed, and actually it was interesting, there was a book on this I was reading the other day as well, and it's a similar concept, which is around this first value. So we always talk about the innovation in terms of here's the end result, the cost saving, the time saving, the new way of delivering a streamlined process. But I always like to ask our project team and the sponsor, what's the first value? What's the thing that's most important to you? And this is typically delivered right after you've just started the implementation of the project or just solved the innovation. And so, for example, on that cybersecurity predictive risk, yes, they wanted to have no attacks, and that was the predictive outcome. That was the result. The first value was actually just a list of risks. Very simple. All they wanted to get was a holistic list of all the risks that they were dealing with right now. They had some list, but not a holistic risk. And that was actually really easy to do. So although we implemented the predictive risk management software, building a list actually took a few days after that. That was their first value. That was their first, okay, we're seeing value from this innovation right here, right now, within the first week. And it was so easy to do. We didn't even know that. So I always coach my team and I coach my clients to say, what's the first value? What's the most important thing that we can deliver quickly on the road to that end journey?
And I think every project should be thinking in those terms, right? If you have something that is going to be 5 years of grind, and then on that 5 year and 1 day, you're seeing all the value come through, good luck trying to get people to commit and move with that 5 years, right? And it reminds me a little bit of back when app design is all the rage and everybody wanted to create the next Facebook. Everybody talked about the network effects of their apps and how once you have everybody on here, it becomes super valuable, right? But there was this concept of an MVU, the minimal viable user. And it's what's the value for one user? If one user is on your platform, what value are they getting out of it? And if you start there at that kernel, then expand it, both your networking impacts hugely. And so you get a lot more network effects, but you also are ensuring that you're meeting short-term needs of your customers. And that's something that can't be overlooked at all.
Yeah, MVU, love that. That's a great way to put that.
Yeah, if I might have misquoted it. So if any of our listeners are listening and know the correct term, let us know. So lastly, John, just as we kind of wrap up here a little bit, you walked us through the innovation roles, how they work in large organizations, the struggles that are occurring in organizations when they actually plant these, and how you want to start focused on the short-term immediate value. We have a team of listeners on here. We actually were just voted, huge kudos to Al and the team for putting this together, the #1 innovation podcast in Canada, which was very cool. So what do you have as any final thoughts for our listeners? Any final takeaways? If they're like, yeah, I love these innovation roles and I want to go and implement them tomorrow, what would you say to them?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're tying it back to that International Quitters Day today as well. And this actually applies to New Year's resolutions, personally around goals. I do a lot of research study around this for my own productivity and with my team, but it also applies to innovation. So there are actually 4 reasons that you need to make sure every innovation team is working towards. The first one is around clarity of goals, making sure you have that purpose, that value that you're trying to work towards. And it's not just a number of cost saving or time saving. That's a result. You want to think about the value, the purpose, the feeling that your users are going to get as a result of solving that problem. How do they emotionally react to that? The second thing is then frequently reviewing those goals. So I like creating triggers. So every time we have a team meeting, or every time we bring out the status reporting, or every time we have a scrum, what are our goals? Let's go back. Let's make sure everyone's crystal clear and focused on the goals. And by the way, has anything changed? The third one is around the activation or the motivation to achieve that goal. And this is where we don't always get rewarded for doing innovation. So yes, you may get a promotion or a pay rise because of it, but that's not always happening. So even just having positive peer pressure. So this is where you share your goals publicly, which is scary, but if you share them publicly, promote the goals, you're saying, hey folks, we're going to achieve this result for the financial close or the streamline the process. And then you get people asking about that. They say, how are you getting on? And then that's that positive peer pressure to actually make sure you work towards those goals. And then the fourth one, the final, is this is the crucial one. Same for personal productivity goals. The fourth one is daily standards. What are the leading indicators? If you talk about leading, lagging indicators, what are the daily standards you must do to make this result inevitable? It's not just having scrums. It's not just having team meetings. It's not just having a business case. It's not just the collaboration. It's what are the things we need to do that directly contribute to the actual result, the purpose, and the goal that we're trying to achieve. And you have to do that daily, because if you do it daily, then the result, the goal becomes inevitable.
Love that. So play those 4 back for us real quick, so we have a good soundbite for later.
For sure. So the 4 ways that every innovation project will be successful are around clarity. Number 1 is clarity, having clarity on the purpose and the goals. Second one is frequent reviews of those goals, setting triggers so you do it on a regular basis. Third one is the activation and the motivation towards the rewards, and one way is sharing them publicly. And the fourth one is the daily standards, the leading indicators to make sure that you're working every single day on things that will make that number 1 goal inevitable.
Excellent. A great overview, John. I'm sure we could keep going all day on this, but I like to keep these things short and sweet, and I think you definitely nailed that. I walked away with a lot of new insights from this, and I'm looking forward to thinking a little bit in my own roles with the different hats that I wear. What am I stepping into? What role am I coming into today as it comes to an innovation lead? So thank you very much, John, again for the time here, and I'm looking forward to future chats.
Yeah, for sure. And if everyone wants to follow me on LinkedIn, always appreciate the follow. I post most days on innovation, simplifying with technology, and I appreciate there's a lot of information here as well. So I actually do have a checklist, which is free. There's no sign up for this, but if you go onto my LinkedIn profile, John Hetherington, and just comment checklist, I'll make sure I get a copy of that checklist sent to you.
Absolutely. And please do. As a follower of John's as well, I know the content is always great, and we'll include all of that in the show notes as well, John, just so that people can find it a little bit easier.
Awesome.